How 1,100 men fooled Hitler into losing D-Day. The Ghost Army, June 6, 1944. Normandy beaches, 150,000 Allied troops storming Fortress Europe, and 150 miles away, an entire German army sitting idle, waiting for an invasion that would never come. 15 divisions, 150,000 battle-hardened Wehrmacht soldiers, tanks, artillery, fortifications, all of it pointed at the wrong beach because of 1,100 men who never fired a shot. Artists, designers, sound engineers, armed with inflatable tanks, recorded sound effects, and enough audacity to convince Hitler's intelligence apparatus that General George Patton was about to lead a million-man army across the English Channel. This is Operation Fortitude, the deception that won D-Day before the first landing craft hit the sand. Let me show you how they pulled off the greatest con in military history. In early 1944, the Allies had a problem. They were planning the largest amphibious invasion in history, and the Germans knew it was coming. The only question was where. Normandy or Pas de Calais? Calais made sense. It was closer to England, just 20 miles across the channel. Shorter supply lines, more direct route to Germany. Hitler's military strategists were convinced that's where the Allies would strike. The Allies needed to keep them convinced, because if the Germans figured out the real target was Normandy, they could move their reserves and turn the beaches into a slaughterhouse. The invasion would fail. Thousands would die, and the war in Europe could drag on for years. So Allied intelligence came up with a plan so insane it just might work. Create an entire phantom army and make the Germans believe it was real. The Phantom Force. They called it FUSAG, First United States Army Group. On paper, it was the largest Allied force in Britain, 12 divisions, 300,000 troops, headquartered in Dover, and commanded by the one American general the Germans feared most, George S. Patton. The Germans had good reason to fear Patton. Sicily, North Africa. Everywhere he went, German armies crumbled. If Patton was preparing for an invasion, that's where the main attack would come. Except FUSAG didn't exist. The divisions were fictional, the headquarters was empty, and Patton's army was actually a collection of inflatable tanks, plywood landing craft, and radio operators broadcasting fake traffic to sell the illusion. The operation had two parts. Fortitude North targeted Norway with a fake British Fourth Army in Scotland. Fortitude South created FUSAG to threaten Calais. And the linchpin of the entire deception was a unit of 1,100 men who specialized in tactical theater. The Ghost Army, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, recruited straight from art schools, advertising agencies, and sound studios. Painters, sculptors, set designers, radio actors. Most had never seen combat. Some had barely finished basic training. Their commanding officers scoured art schools across America looking for creative minds who could think like stage magicians. They needed people who understood illusion, perspective, and how to make something look real from a distance. What they created was unprecedented. Inflatable Sherman tanks made from rubber and air pumps. From 500 feet up, German reconnaissance planes couldn't tell the difference. 25 pounds of rubber that looked like 30 tons of armor. Dummy artillery pieces made from wood and canvas. Fake supply depots built from painted tarps stretched over scaffolding. Phony airfields with plywood planes that could be assembled in hours. And the sound effects, that's where it got brilliant. The Ghost Army's Sonic Deception Unit recorded actual tank formations, troop movements, and supply convoys. Then they mounted massive speakers on trucks and played those recordings at night across the English countryside. German listening posts would pick up the sounds of a mechanized division moving into position. Engine noise, track squeaks, radio chatter, all of it fake. The man who never was. But hardware alone wouldn't fool German intelligence. They needed credibility. Enter Juan Pujol Garcia, codename Garbo, a Spanish double agent working for MI5 who had convinced the Abwehr, German military intelligence, that he was their most valuable spy in Britain. The Germans trusted him completely. They paid him, promoted him, gave him an Iron Cross, second class, and he fed them exactly what the Allies wanted them to believe. Garbo reported fictional FUSG units moving into Dover. He described supply stockpiles that didn't exist. He confirmed troop counts from imaginary divisions. But here's the genius. The information had to be partially true to maintain credibility. So when the Normandy invasion launched on June 6th, Garbo sent an urgent message to his German handlers. Too late to stop the landing, but just in time to seem legitimate. He reported the invasion as a diversion. The real attack, he warned, was still coming at Calais. Patton's FUSAG would strike any day. The Germans believed him, and Hitler kept 15 divisions pinned down at Calais for 7 critical weeks after D-Day. The devil in the details. Making the deception work required obsessive attention to detail. Radio operators broadcast fake communications using genuine Allied radio protocols. They simulated entire division networks, complete with authentication codes and proper radio discipline. German signals intelligence intercepted these transmissions and reported a massive buildup across from Calais. The Ghost Army even created fake reconnaissance missions. They deliberately let German spotter planes photograph their dummy equipment, making sure the lighting was right, the shadows fell correctly, and the tanks were positioned exactly like real armored formations. They painted mud patterns on inflatable vehicles to simulate wear. They drove jeeps in circles around dummy tanks to create realistic track marks. They hung laundry lines near fake bivouacs and lit small cooking fires to simulate encampments. Every detail designed to pass scrutiny from German photo analysts studying reconnaissance images. And it worked because the Germans were looking for confirmation of what they already believed. Hitler was convinced Calais was the target. His intelligence officers were primed to see evidence supporting that conclusion. Cognitive bias weaponized on a strategic scale. The waiting game. D-Day came. The Normandy landing succeeded. Allied forces established a beachhead and started pushing inland. And the 15th German Army stayed at Calais, waiting for Patton. Field Marshal Rommel begged Hitler for permission to move those divisions to Normandy. The reports from the front were desperate. The Allies were breaking through. Reinforcements were critical. Hitler refused. The intelligence was clear. Normandy was a feint. The main invasion was still coming at Calais. So the 15th Army waited and waited. By the time Hitler realized the truth, it was too late. The Allies had landed 500,000 troops in Normandy. They'd established supply lines, captured ports, and built the momentum that would carry them all the way to Berlin. All because 1,100 artists and sound engineers convinced the German high command that a rubber army was real. The aftermath. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops went on to conduct 20 more deception operations across France, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Germany. They simulated entire divisions moving into position before actual attacks, drawing German forces away from the real targets. They were so effective that their existence remained classified until 1996. 50 years after the war ended, most of these men never told their families what they really did during the war. The unit was finally awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 2024, nearly 80 years after their first mission. Operation Fortitude's impact is hard to overstate. Military historians estimate that keeping the 15th Army out of the Normandy battle for those crucial first weeks saved tens of thousands of Allied lives and shortened the war in Europe by months. All because someone asked, what if we could win a battle without firing a shot? The next time someone tells you creativity has no place in warfare, remember the art students who built an army out of air and turned military deception into a fine art. 15 divisions, 150,000 German soldiers, paralyzed by inflatable tanks and sound effects. The Ghost Army proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a gun, it's a really good illusion. If you want more stories about the brilliant minds who engineered victory in World War II, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment. What other secret operations from World War II deserve a deep dive? Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.